Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is November the 17th. I'm Brock Seguin. With me, as always, we've got Zach Laing. Zach, it's Monday. It's November the 17th. How are you doing? I hope you had a good weekend.
Yeah, good weekend for sure. Lost too much money on the NFL streets in the DFS NFL streets, but my Chicago Bears pulled off a big last-second victory over the Minnesota Vikings, and we're sitting atop the NFC North right now. I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Feels like a personal shot. Not gonna lie. Number one, I texted you that I had a big Minnesota money line bet. Number two, I'm a Lions fan. I want to say that we got hosed last night, but I didn't really have a lot of confidence that we were gonna drive down and score our first touchdown of the night anyway. So who knows? But here we are. Beeb says, "Ugh." I don't know what that means. I hope nothing bad happened. We got a 6-game slate on our hands tonight, which is interesting for a Monday, pretty large. But then tomorrow is a smaller 8-game slate, I believe. 6, then 8, then 4, then 12, then 4. So another week. Towards the Bears. Yeah, that makes sense. Personal shot on Beebs as well. Nice week of DFS action again this week. Shall we get started?
Let's roll, buddy.
Okay, before we get into it, I just want to say, I keep saying that we're going to bring back the daily face-off, the head-to-head lineup challenge. I keep slacking on that. It will be back tomorrow. I promise. Starting tomorrow, we are back. Some of the shittiest NFL football I've ever seen this season. Yeah, there's been some. Yesterday was insane. That Lions game was gross. Yes, let's get into hockey. Got to Charlie Lindgren start tonight for the Washington Capitals, which I'm a little surprised by. They've got a back-to-back on Wednesday, Thursday. That seemed like a more logical time to get him back between the pipes, but here we are. Projected to see Darcy Kemper for the LA Kings. Sergei Bobrovsky gets the start for the Florida Panthers. Yuri Patera projected to get the start in the second half of a back-to-back for the Vancouver Canucks. Connor Garland got hurt last night, but it sounds like he'll be okay to go tonight, so we've got him in the lineup tonight still. Colton Ellis continues to play well for the Buffalo Sabres. He'll get the nod against the visiting Edmonton Oilers, who look to be in a good spot tonight. I'm sure Zach cannot wait to talk about them. Jeremy Swayman likely to get the start for the Boston Bruins. We don't know who's getting the start for the Hurricanes. I projected that it's going to be Brandon Busey because he used to play for the Bruins, and they've really shown no reason not to go to him. He's played well. They've shown a willingness to play all three of them, so he's projected. Could be Kachekov. It's one of those two, I would imagine. Jack Reeves gets a start for the Columbus Blue Jackets. This is his 5th start in, I want to say 8 days. 8 or 9 for sure. It'll be Jakub Dobish for the Montreal Canadiens. And then the nightcap, we've got Lucas Dostal up against projected to see Karel Vejmelka. So a lot of early games kind of jammed in, and then all of a sudden you're going to be sitting at the top winning all that money, and then Anaheim, Utah is going to start and see what happens. So here we go. So Zach, you said you want me to continue breaking down Edmonton games. So I'll go first here with Washington and LA. So this game, to me, initially I was not like that interested in this one as a whole, just because it definitely felt like a little bit of a lower scoring game with these two really good defensive teams going head to head. Especially the Kings. They've been just outstanding defensively, according to Sports Logic, number one in terms of 5v5 expected goals against. But then on the other side of the puck, the Capitals are the number 4 best offensive team in 5v5. So, an interesting game. But then once Charlie Lindgren got confirmed, I feel a lot better about the LA Kings, at least in the betting market. I bet on the Kings money line this morning. I also ended up betting the over in this game, but from a DFS standpoint, still doesn't look like the greatest game ever. I think it's a really difficult matchup for the Capitals, and then even if the Kings are able to score, we always kind of have a difficult time figuring out which Kings line is the best line to target, and that really has not changed and probably would never will. From the Washington standpoint, they've shuffled things up a little bit. Over the weekend, we saw Ovechkin, Stroman, McMichael. They're projected to be together at 5v5 tonight. I think that makes them a little bit more interesting from a full stack standpoint. Just 14,700 is a pretty good price tag as well. The second line Protoss, Justin Surdif and Tom Wilson there at 11,400. Not really sure how to feel, but they have the better matchup of the two. But they're going to go head-to-head against the Kopitar line, which really isn't a good matchup. But the underlying metrics here continue to be really solid for this Washington Capitals team. As I mentioned, number 4 in terms of 5v5 expected goals for, but just run into an absolute buzzsaw tonight. That is the Kings defensively. The power play as well. The Kings have been very good on the PK, 9th best power play, penalty kill, excuse me. The Capitals struggling on the power play. Same thing goes for the Kings, but the Capitals PK has been one of the worst in the league. Special teams have been a real issue for the Capitals this season. Great 5v5 team. Special teams have really, really been lacking. So, kind of all this is to say is just like, I really don't love this game. I think that a little bit of Washington one perhaps is interesting with Strome, Ovechkin, McMichael. We saw Strome, Ovechkin, and Beauvillier have really strong underlying metrics together. McMichael, $3,300 feels like a little bit of an upgrade on Beauvillier. So I feel pretty strongly there. I don't know about the offensive ability really of the second line. It feels a little off, but at 11,400, I think they're an okay punt. But there's a lot of value on the slate. I just don't really feel the need to get there. And then on the Kings side of things, I think it's much of the same, where it's kind of just like Fiala Byfield. Uh, Maybe sprinkle in some Leferrier. I feel better about the mini. And then the one guy that I really like from this game is Brant Clark tonight. Uh, no Drew Doughty, he's out. So, we saw Clark have some relatively inconsistent usage early in the season. It's balanced out a little bit lately. And then obviously if you take Doughty out of the lineup, they really have to lean heavily on some of their good defensemen, and Clark is one of them. And at $3,700, he's somebody I really like. Not drawing much ownership tonight at just 5.5%. So I really like Brant Clark in this game. Maybe a little bit of like Fiala, Byfield, Mini. And then the other thing to keep an eye on in this game is John Carlson's a game time decision again. He didn't end up playing on, I believe it was Saturday. So if he's out, I think that elevates a lot of these Washington defensemen as well. Matt Roy becomes an even better punt option. Rasmus Sandin will see elevated minutes at minimum price, and he's already doing quite a bit in terms of a floor. So those two definitely get a bump for me if Carlson's out. And then obviously Chikrin's going to see a little bit more usage as well. What did Jacob Chikrin end up playing on Saturday with Carlson out? Just let me look that up quickly. It was 28 minutes and 22 seconds. So, yeah. I think that's something to keep an eye on tonight if Carlson is out. Zach, I talked for about 6 minutes there and didn't say a whole lot of anything other than I'm probably not going to play a ton of it. What are your thoughts on this one?
Don't really have a whole lot to add, to be totally honest with you. I think I've got some interest in this King side of things just because of the fact that, like you mentioned, Charlie Lindgren gets to start tonight. I think for me, it's pretty much LA2 or bust. I don't really see a need to get to any of these other lines here tonight. Obviously, the matchups are going to be difficult for the King side as a whole. It doesn't look great for the Capital side of things either. I don't really love this game. It's got an okay pace score, but it just feels like there's some other spots that I'd much rather kind of divert my ownership to. 20 maxing tonight for me. So I think I'll throw probably, 5% Washington 1, 5% Washington 2, 5% LA 2, and pretty much just call it a day at that. Like, I don't really feel a need to get to a lot of this game. So I think there's some interesting spots here. I think especially on a 20 or a 6-game slate, 20 maxing, 150 maxing, fair to throw a little bit of ownership there, but I don't think there's any need to kind of go crazy here or get over the field in any of these spots.
Yeah, according to my model here, second lowest implied total on the night. I believe it's the lowest total overall on the slate in the sports books as well. Yeah, it's the only 5.5 total of the night. So yeah, definitely looks like the lowest scoring game of the night. But I do think that there's some intrigue. I think there's some potential. Like I said, I'm mostly interested in the defenseman. Why don't we get to game number 2 here? Florida hosting the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, a game that's certainly more interesting. Florida Panthers coming in as massive home favorites here. Minus 280 on the money line, 3.9 implied total for them, plus 243 for these Canucks on the money line, 2.4 implied total. The Florida Panthers are grading out extremely well, and they're going to be extremely hard to ignore tonight. A lot of ownership coming in on this top 6 here tonight. Florida 2 grading out best in the line stacks tonight, grading out second overall. Florida 1 close behind at 6th. Vancouver 1 looks like they're in an okay-ish spot at 18th overall, and then Vancouver 2 all the way down at 35th overall. let's cut right to it. The ownership is huge on this Florida Panthers side. Top line is projecting for 21.5% ownership. Line 2 projecting for 18% ownership. And it's kind of easy to see why. I mean, the matchups are tremendous for the Florida Panthers tonight. This top 6 and even the third line are grading out extremely well. We're seeing that top 6 maybe starting to find their way a little bit. I mean, that top line is really carrying the load in terms of the actual goal scoring. But this second line, their floor is starting to pick up a little bit here. It feels like we're seeing a little bit more volume from guys like Reinhart and Evan Rodriguez as of late. We're still just kind of waiting for those goals to actually go in. They're projected to play 31% of the ice time tonight, and the Canucks are starting Jiri Patera, who has been an AHL goaltender the last 2 years, and not a very good one. Sub 900 save percentage in the AHL. This feels like a spot for the for the Panthers rather to kind of just pour it on tonight. The biggest concern is obviously the goal scoring. It's still something we're just not seeing enough of from the Florida Panthers. 5-on-5, you'd like to see more there. Their power play has especially been weak over their last 10 games, just 7 goals per hour on the man advantage. So really, really struggling there. But, the nice thing is that they've got a tremendous power play matchup tonight. The number 1 ranked power play matchup on the entire slate, despite their power play clipping at just 20%. They're going up against a very bad Canucks penalty kill tonight, and it's going to be tough for Jiri Patera. I think, it's totally fair to meet the field here and maybe get a little bit over the field on this Florida Panthers side of things. It feels like a smash spot. And I think on a slate like this, it's a little bit hard to ignore because you take a look at some of these other games and there's just not as much ownership coming in. The third highest owned line is Columbus 2 tonight at 15%. Then it's Edmonton 1 at 12%, Carolina 1, Boston 1, both coming in at about 10%. And every other line is under 10% ownership here tonight. So I think this is a night where you kind of got to eat the chalk on the Florida Panthers and just kind of hope that they're able to capitalize. Don't really have a lot of interest in their blue line. Just haven't really been doing a whole lot this season. I think Seth Jones is fine. And Aaron Ekblad as well, just given that they are the power play quarterbacks. I don't know, Brock, what do you think on this game, man? I do think it's hard to ignore this ownership.
Yeah. I think the price tag is the thing that's the hardest to ignore, right? Very, very cheap. Simskevich moves up with Lundell and Marchand with Luosterainen out. I mean, that in itself entices me. That is, he's a much more potent offensive player than Luosterainen is. I think that gives that line a little bit more offensive punch. The matchup, as you mentioned, is just outstanding. It's basically the second best matchup on the entire slate, and the underlying metrics are really good. So yeah, I really like the idea of playing the Florida Panthers tonight from a pure matchup standpoint. I think it's as hard as it is to ignore the salaries and the ownership. I think the underlying metrics are the hardest thing to ignore. It's just not been a team that's generated much at 5v5 this year. On the season, they are 26th in terms of 5v5 offense. The good news is the Canucks are 32nd. So defensively. So it's as good of a matchup. And if there's ever a time for the offense to kind of break out, this is it. But the Lightning were extremely shorthanded the other night. Couldn't take advantage. It hasn't gotten better over the in the month of November. Florida's dead last in the NHL in 5v5 expected goals for. So I think there's a world in which they just don't take advantage of this matchup the way that we think they're going to. So I agree that it's this theoretically the matchup is outstanding. How could it fail? But it doesn't feel like the best chalk ever. I think obviously the matchup is great and Patera is not great. I'm probably going to come in under the field here. I think it's a decent leverage spot with as bad as this offense has been, but to just completely ignore Florida, I think would be obviously stupid. So I think you either have to take a stand on one of two sides of the puck here. It's yes, I'm all in on Florida and I'm going to be above the ownership, or I'm going to come in underweight and hope that their offensive struggles continue. But Marchand's been great. Simskevich up there at 3,400. That line basically having the best 5v5 matchup of the night at 14,100. What are you supposed to do? Not play them? It's hard not to. Yeah. So I I'm gonna play them. I don't want to like persuade people not to because I'm gonna play them too. But like I said, I probably come in underweight. I might decide to like come in underweight on one line and be overweight on the other, and just hope I get it right there. I think that might be a route to go. I just feel like there's still a pathway to where this doesn't work out, and you're gonna be left like, oh yeah, I played Florida again, and they shit their pants once again.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I get that concern. I think, you make good points for being a little bit under the field or meeting the field for sure. I think one thing for me is I'm not going to be over the field. Like, I'm not getting over 20% total ownership on these lines. I'll meet the field at it, but I don't think I'm going over. And honestly, I don't hate the idea of maybe playing a little bit of Vancouver 1 here. Since Evander Kane, Garland, and Pettersson have been put together, they have been really, really solid for the Vancouver Canucks. We saw it again on the weekend where, another good night from them. Evander Kane's shot volume has been tremendous this year, 10.2 shots on goal per hour of ice time. Connor Garland taking a good amount of shots as well. I don't mind the idea of playing a little bit of this Vancouver top line as well. I mean, for as much as the Panthers have kind of struggled offensively, it feels like, defensively, they're a team that's been just okay this season. Bobrovsky hasn't been anything crazy to write home about here this year. He's got an .892 save percentage, -0.5 goals saved above expected. Solid quality start numbers. 77% of his starts are quality starts, but he's only won 62% of those starts. So I don't mind the idea of throwing a little bit of ownership at this Canucks top line as well, but I'm not getting down to these second or third lines beyond maybe the odd one-off of Brock Besser or Jake DeBrusk, just hoping for some shot volume from those guys.
Yeah, just one more thing on Florida. So the underlying metrics for the team as a whole are disastrous, but Rodriguez, Reinhart, Verhaeghe continue to possess great underlying metrics. 3.5 expected goals for per 60 and 118 minutes together is outstanding, right? 36 scoring chances, 13 high danger. So they're due, right? They've only scored 2.0 goals for. So about a goal and a half per 60 under expected because they're shooting just 6.5% together. So they're due. The team as a whole, the third and fourth line not generating much, but this line is. The Lundell Marchand duo without Luostarinen tonight, they've been solid too. 3.0 expected goals for per 60. They've actually scored though. They've shot 13.6 together. So they feel like the safer of the two options. And then the Verhaeghe, Rodriguez, Reinhart line is just feels so due. And like maybe this is the matchup where it's like, let's go. Let's break through. It's all lining up for us tonight. So if I had to pick, I would say Florida 2, the Verhaeghe Reinhart line. If you had to pick, would you agree or would you go with the cheaper line?
Yeah, I agree with you. And solely just because you're getting a bit of a better floor from these guys. On average, over the last 10 DraftKings games, the second line, their floor is 14.7 points per game, and that top line is 10.7. Just getting a little bit better shot volume from those guys on the second line. But, Brad Marchand up on that top line has been the one who's really driving things for that top line.
Yeah, Carter Verhaeghe just can't score. This poor man. This poor man. He scored on opening night. Since then, he has 1 goal in 17 games on 90 shot attempts. He is shooting 2.6%. Literally insane. Let's get to Buffalo and Edmonton. The Oilers are -150 road favorites in this one. 3.6 implied total, 2.9 implied total for the Buffalo Sabres. Sabres had a big come from behind victory over the Red Wings on the weekend, but this is a team that is still extremely banged up, missing a ton of forwards. Michael Kesselring out on the blue line now, although Rasmus Dahlin did return on the weekend. But yeah, they gave us some new look lines today. Josh Doan up on that top line with Tage Thompson, Alex Tuch. I think that's pretty interesting. Outside of that, I could care less about the rest of this lineup outside of maybe Isaac Rosen. Shot volume has been pretty good young player, super cheap. What is he, minimum price $3,000? Yeah, I might play some Rosen tonight, but Buffalo 1, I think I'll start there. They're pretty interesting, right? That's an interesting looking line. Josh Doan has been very productive this season despite playing like 15-16 minutes a night. Now obviously getting that bump to the top line. I think that Tage Thompson probably he would be the first to admit hasn't quite had like the season he would have hoped. It's gone okay. 8 goals, 8 assists in 18 games. But like still I feel like we're waiting for kind of like that massive Tage Thompson game, right? We haven't really had that. He hasn't had more than 2 points in a game, which is obviously still very good. But like it just doesn't feel like he's had that explosion game. And this feels like a game in which that could happen, right? We know that the Oilers aren't necessarily the most defensively sound. They've been solid, but like they're like unbelievable defensive numbers from the start of the season have withered. And Stuart Skinner is certainly gettable. So, not seeing a lot of ownership as a whole here, just 7% as a line. The matchup isn't ideal. That they're kind of just going to play against everybody. But I think this is a line when you look at the metrics that's worth getting to tonight. So I'll get to a little bit of Buffalo one this evening for sure. Power play matchup is far from ideal though. So yeah, I'm not like going crazy, but at that ownership, like I'll get 10% of them tonight. Boy, now it's the Oilers. Zach Hyman's back and Edmonton 1 grades out number 1. It's just like, here we are. We're back. Edmonton 2 grades out 13th. I don't care. I'm going to continue to play Jack Roslovic at 5K until he's $7,500. He's a good play, in my opinion. He's just been unbelievable. The matchups are good for both these lines because, again, no hard matching really. Top line's got the better underlying metrics. Don't care. Again, Leon and Roslovic and Podkolzin have been good. Roslovic's great. He has just been a huge addition for this team. Getting Hyman back, obviously, is massive. So, Zach, what did you make of the Oilers' first game with Zach Hyman back in the lineup? Is it just all hands back on deck here?
Majority of hands back on deck, some hands back on deck. I mean, it was a tough game for the Oilers. I mean, the Carolina Hurricanes are a great hockey club, and the Oilers kind of got hurricaned. They were heavily outshot in that game. Stuart Skinner kind of bailed them out. They were able to hang around and able to find an overtime winner. I mean, I've got a lot of interest in Edmonton tonight. I mean, we talk about the Buffalo Sabres being a banged up team and them struggling. Edmonton 1 grading out number 1 in the charts is really interesting to me. Connor McDavid has absolutely turned it on as of late. In his last 10 games played, he's got 8 goals and 10 assists, 35 shots on goal over that time. It's the third most DraftKings points of any player in their last 10 games, third to only Connor Bedard and Nathan McKinnon. So I've got a lot of interest in getting to this Oilers side of things tonight. I lean a little bit more towards that top line than I do that second line. Matt Savoy, it's not really showing up much in terms of his individual numbers, but he's really starting to come along here. And he's getting a look up on this top line with Zach Hyman and Connor McDavid, which I think speaks volumes to how good he's been quietly this season. So I think for me, my pecking order is Edmonton 1, then Edmonton 2. Don't get me wrong. I still like the second line, especially with Draisaitl and Roslovic there. The one issue about Draisaitl right now, shot volume's really dried up. Only 2.2 shots on goal per game over his last 10 games. Roslovic, meanwhile, shooting quite a bit, even though 2.6 shots on goal per game doesn't really seem like a lot. I've got interest in this Oilers side of things tonight. I'm going to be over the field on Edmonton. I think they're really an interesting play here tonight, especially with Colton Ellis between the pipes. Been a bit of a struggle early on for him. I think he's somebody the Oilers can absolutely get to here tonight. So, yeah, I'm firing up Edmonton 1. There's no doubt about it. I'm ready to get hurt again.
Yeah, the top line's so interesting, right? Like getting Hyman back. You guys avoid keeping the price tag down. The second line, Roslovic, 13 points in his last 11 games, 2.7 shots on goal, 4.8 shot attempts, played nearly 20 minutes a night on the top power play unit, even with Hyman back, with Nuge still out. So yeah, lots of like there. The Sabres, where did my stats go? Okay, here's their last 4 games: 4 goals against, 6 goals against, 5 goals against, 6 goals against. Their last 10 games played have given up 4.1 goals per game. So this is a team, like I said, very banged up. That this is a Sabres team that's super gettable right now, and the Oilers are seemingly finding their way. This is a spot where I feel better about the Oilers than I do the Panthers. Obviously, the price differential is a major factor in the ownership, but this Edmonton side feels under-owned tonight.
Yeah, I agree. $17,900 for the top line. They're really not that expensive. Playing around with some builds, like you can fit Edmonton and Florida together pretty easily here on this slate tonight. And even that second line at $16,600, I think is still more than reasonable. 13,500 if you're just playing Draisaitl and Roslovic. I think there's a pretty easy route to success here for the Edmonton Oilers tonight. Like you mentioned, with Buffalo giving up so many goals against here as of late. So yeah, I think this is a really interesting spot for the Oilers. Like I said, I'm certainly going to be over the field here on them tonight.
Let's get to game number 4. We've got the Boston Bruins hosting the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yes, we certainly do. The Boston Bruins, home dogs, which obviously makes sense. Plus 165 on the money line, 2.7 implied total for them. Carolina Hurricanes, minus 184 on the money line, 3.6 implied total for them. Carolina's top 6 grades out really well. Shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody here. The second line actually grading out the best at number 8 overall. Carolina 1 grading out 9th best overall on the slate tonight. Boston 1 coming in at 17th. Boston 2 all the way down at 31st overall. The matchups aren't tremendous here for the Carolina Hurricanes. Boston has seemingly been okay-ish defensively, especially in the goals against column here as of late, but make no mistake, the Carolina Hurricanes are still a tremendous hockey team. I've got interest in playing this Carolina side of things tonight for sure. This top line, I'll get some ownership there. The second line, I'm not as confident in them right now as I have been in the past. Jackson Blake's volume has dried up a little bit here as of late. Logan Stankoven still struggling to get a whole lot done out there. Nick Ehlers, meanwhile, finally starting to turn a bit of a corner offensively. So I've got interest in this whole top 6 for the Hurricanes. Definitely would be a little higher owned on that top line rather than the second line. But make no mistake, this feels like a pretty good spot to get to them. Boston, it's the same old thing, man. I just don't know what to do.
So banged up.
They're just so banged up. I think maybe a little bit of Pasta and a little bit of Geeky is okay on this slate tonight. Pasta is drawing 15% ownership. Morgan Geeky has been red hot as of late. He's drawing 10% ownership. I'm fine throwing a little bit their way. I think the Hurricanes are a team defensively that is still gettable here. Goaltending has continued to be a bit of a sore spot for them here as of late as well. So for me, I'm okay firing up a little bit of this Boston side of thing, but I don't think it's right that Boston 1 is as owned as Carolina 1 is tonight. That is for sure. I would have more ownership on this Carolina side, no doubt about it.
This feels like the easiest Boston fade of all time. There's a 0% chance I meet the field. I'll be way over the field on Carolina. I've been playing Carolina too at will. Hasn't, like you said, worked out the best. Some big games, some not. I feel like there's a big game just percolating here for this team. So I'm in on Carolina too. Carolina 1's been unreal. No reason not to go back to them at 18,900. Really like them. Love this top 6 of the Hurricanes this evening. No Charlie McAvoy. I just had the Bruins lines up. They look awful. They're so banged up. They're missing 2 of their top centers. They're missing 3 of the half their top 6 is gone. Not that it was that good to begin with, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm a Bruins hater right now. I will say Mate Blumel is going to step in to the second line and the top power play unit at minimum price. I'll click on him tonight for sure. I'll click on guys like Hampus Lindholm and Andrew Peeke that are going to block 100 shots tonight against the Hurricanes as they absolutely dominate this hockey game. Blumel I think is fine as a minimum price filler. He's a kid with tremendous AHL numbers and a kid that nearly made this team out of training camp that's got a lot of offensive talent that he's just waiting to kind of put on display at the NHL level. So at minimum price, I'll get to him a little bit. Some of these other defensemen that are probably going to be mispriced as a result of the McAvoy injury. If we take a look at the Bruins defenseman here, that's the wrong team. 23 minutes for Hampus Lindholm at $3,500, top power play unit quarterback. That's perfectly reasonable. Peak $2,900 over 20 minutes tonight. Going to block 100 shots tonight. Zadorov, even at 3K, I'm fine getting there. Literally no ownership. Going to block some shots, I'm sure, tonight as well. So I think, again, this is more of a value attack on the Boston Bruins, but paying $8,800 for Pasta, I don't ever get it right anyway, so what's the point? But I'd rather play Seth Jarvis at $2,200 savings over their last 10 games. Let me see here. In the last 10 games, DraftKings points per game, Brad Marchand has more points than David Pastrnak, and he's $3,000 cheaper. So there's that. I just don't, I don't know. I don't get past it right. So maybe I'm an idiot.
No, I don't think you're an idiot.
Play all the Bruins and pass the sniper rocks off them. Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
Any final thoughts on this one? Like, I don't know. I have a hard time with the Bruins. I mean, the power play matchup's pretty decent. But love this Hurricanes power play matchup. Oh, the other guy I forgot to mention in this game that I just absolutely adore is Shane Gostisbehere has just been unbelievable. Like, he's up over 20 minutes tonight. He grades out as the best value defenseman on the slate by a mile at $4,800. Seeing 7.5% ownership. It's insane. So
yeah, I don't really have any other thoughts to add. It's a gross spot for Boston for sure. Like I said, there's no reason for Boston 1 to be as high owned as Carolina 1 is tonight. Let's move it along.
Yeah, Pasta grades as the 10th best forward in terms of value tonight at $8,800. Let's get to the Blue Jackets and the Montreal Canadiens. Pretty much a toss-up in this one. You get 25 cents for home ice, essentially, and it's minus 130 for the Blue Jackets. So coin flip in this one, 3.4 implied total for the Blue Jackets. This is a Blue Jackets team that we know does not defend very well. But then this is also kind of this is like two polar opposite teams meeting. The Montreal Canadiens have been very solid defensively at 5v5, not very good offensively. The Blue Jackets are the complete opposite of that. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see which style of play takes over in this one. The Blue Jackets seem to always be stuck in a high event game. So I feel like they're going to suck Montreal into that tonight. I do think that this game's got potential fireworks. This Blue Jackets second line, I've been talking about them for a couple of weeks now. Since, Fantilli, Voronkov, and Marchenko have been put together, they've been nothing short of spectacular and really underpriced, it feels like, at 16,600. So super interested in them tonight. Matchup's not great on either side of the puck, which is stunning for the Canadiens. I thought it would be phenomenal, but here we are. On the Canadian side of things, I feel play them more than I do. I think it's mostly just this top line here. It's kind of the only one that I can seemingly trust on a night-to-night basis. They're not drawing a lot of ownership tonight, which I think is pretty surprising given the struggles that the Blue Jackets have had. I really like Jet Greaves, the goalie. I don't know how much I like Jet Greaves, the goalie, who just has played in his 5th game in 8 nights. That seems less than ideal. So yeah, this is the worst penalty kill in the league for the Blue Jackets. I think Montreal's super live tonight and really not seeing much ownership. So as little Montreal as I typically get to, I think tonight's a pretty good night to click on them. And if Greaves shows any fatigue, which I couldn't imagine, how could you not? I think it's a good spot for Montreal. So, they've got some injuries that they're dealing with as well. I think that could lead to a little bit more usage for this top line. We got them projected at 31% of the ice time already. So, yeah, I'm going to be firing them up tonight for sure. And then, the rest of the team, not very good defensively outside of that top line. So you really just need to get that Voronkov line kind of away from them. I don't know why I called them the Voronkov line, but Fantilli Marchenko line away from them, and you'll be all right there in that stack as well. They've been just so good. So yeah, I like those two lines. I don't know how much of the rest of this Blue Jackets team I'm going to get to. Monahan without Marchenko and Voronkov, not quite the same. Kent Johnson's been off to a really slow start. I think Igor Chinikov getting moved up to the top line or top 6, whatever you want to call it, at minimum price is worth a click. He's probably only going to play 13 minutes though. So honestly, Blumel is probably a better play, but I don't mind Chinikov again as a minimum price filler. You, like I said, play a little bit more Montreal than I do typically. Where are you at in this one?
Yeah, I'm comfortable coming in over the field here on this top line tonight. I think there's enough value on this slate to kind of get here to Montreal 1. $18,400. They're one of the higher or one of the more expensive lines on the slate, but I mean, these guys are consistently really solid. Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki are the two that I would have the most interest to. They both have 1.2 points per game in their career against the Blue Jackets, and Slavkovsky not far behind, 0.9 points per game, 7 points in 8 games played. So for me, I'm firing up Montreal 1 tonight, feeling confident about it. Like you said, I mean, Jet Greaves has just been playing so much hockey as of late here. He's been doing fine. He's holding his own to say the least. But you have to imagine at some point that's going to kind of come crashing down here. And this certainly feels like a spot where it could happen. There's not as much ownership as I was expecting coming in on Montreal 1. I think this ownership on Columbus, especially the second line, is certainly more than fair. I mean, that is the one line that I would target, from this Blue Jackets side of things. So I think for me, I'm definitely going to be getting a bit over the field on Montreal 1, getting to the field on Columbus 2. I feel like both of these plays are okay spots. Jakub Dobeš has been good this season. He hasn't been great or anything like that. But I think it's a spot where, offensively, this game could open up a little bit. And largely just surrounding these two lines. So yeah, I've definitely got some interest here for sure.
These two teams like to light it up when they play each other. Montreal has dominated this series over the last 2 seasons. We'll start with last year. No, sorry, stand by. 2 years ago. No, we'll go with last year. They won 2 of the 3 meetings. They've scored 5, 4, and 4 goals in those 3 games. The year before that, they won all 3 meetings. They scored 4, 4, and 3 goals. I know these don't have a ton of weight on today's Blue Jackets team, but then the year before that, they won 2 of 3 and they scored 4, 3, and 8 goals. So it's a Montreal team that's really put the puck in the back of the net against Columbus in the past. Again, I don't know how much weight that holds tonight, but it's always interesting to talk about. Let's get to the final game of the night. Zach, you've got Anaheim and Utah, where the Mammoth are minus 115 road favorites.
Yeah, it should be an interesting game here for sure. Utah 3.3 implied total. The Anaheim Ducks coming in with a pretty solid 3.1 implied total as well here. A lot of lines grading out well in this game tonight. Anaheim 2 grading out the best. Third overall, Cutter Gauthier, Mason McTavish, Beckett Seneke. Utah 1 grading out 5th overall. Anaheim 1 grading out 12th overall. Utah 3 and Utah 2 both within the top 16 as well. Pretty interesting stuff here. I've got a lot of interest in this game. I'm definitely going to be getting there with ownership tonight. There's not a lot of ownership coming in on this game, and I'm kind of surprised by it. The matchup scores are, not great for the Anaheim Ducks. They're average at best for this Utah Mammoth side. But I mean, these top 6s on both sides have been chugging along at a really solid clip this season. Anaheim 1 is just continuing to light it up. Leo Carlson, Troy Terry, and Chris Kreider. Anaheim 2, I think, is a little bit more difficult to get to from a full stack perspective. Mason McTavish has just not really been doing much at all this season. Beckett Seneke obviously was red hot coming out of the gate to start the year, but he's kind of been slowing down in terms of his volume as of late here. So I think on this Anaheim side of things, a good amount of Anaheim 1. I'm okay adding Gauthier to Anaheim 1 stacks as well. You've obviously got, the power play correlation there with all of those guys playing on the man advantage together. It's not a great spot for the power play tonight for Anaheim or anything like that, but I think just given that correlation, it's just something you can certainly get to. I don't know how much full stacking I'm going to do of Anaheim 2, especially with what I mentioned about McTavish and Seneke there. And then on this Utah side of things, I mean, call me foolish, but I've got interest in all 3 of these lines. I've kind of been banging the drum about Utah 3 here for the last little bit on Saturday. They had some line changes at the last minute. Michael Carconi sliding up to Utah 2. JJ Peterka sliding down to that third line. The top line for me is still probably the one that I would want to target the most. 3.6 goals per hour. That's the big reason why they're scoring. The underlying metrics aren't as strong for them as they are for that second or even that third line, but the way that they're scoring offensively, it feels like a nice spot. The second line gets a little bit cheaper with Carconi sliding up there for JJ Peterka. I've got some interest in getting there. Dylan Gunther, Barrett Hayton have been, Gunther has been solid this season. Barrett Hayton, I mean, a guy who's always leaving you wanting more. And Carconi, I've talked about it last week a lot. The shot volume's been great. 10.4 shots on goal per hour of ice time. Utah 3, I think, offers a really affordable stack to get to tonight with Peterka down there, with Lawson Krause and Jack McBain. McBain's certainly the one that you could leave off of any stacks there. So I've got interest in this game. I'm probably going to be almost certainly over the field as a whole here tonight on these lines.
Yeah. Utah's tough because we talked about it last week. They don't give up a lot, but they give up quality. They don't give up a lot of shots. They seem to keep everything kind of slowed down and then give up an A+ chance. It's kind of their MO right now. So like I do have a hard time stacking against them. Plus, like I think that we all kind of anticipated the Ducks were going to cool off eventually. After winning 7 in a row and 9 of 10 at the end of October and the beginning of November. Now they've lost 3 in a row in Colorado, in Detroit, in Montreal, 0-3 on that road trip with scoring just 4 goals. You know, I feel like this kind of happened to Utah as well, right? Like they came out of the gates firing, scoring at will, beating the brakes off of everybody, then lost like 5 in a row. I feel like maybe Anaheim's in the middle of that right now, and I don't think this is the friendliest matchup ever. That being said, when you look just at the numbers, Anaheim 1's numbers are unbelievable. Anaheim's 2 numbers they're still unbelievable. So like I have hope. I just have reservations about it. I think that they could be in the middle of it a little bit tonight against a Utah team that is, pretty difficult to play against. So I think that more of my interest comes on this Utah side of things, and pretty heavily so. This is a team that's 5th in the NHL in 5v5 expected goals for, going up against a team that's 29th in 5v5 expected goals against. Let's not forget that despite winning, 9 of 10 games, this is a Ducks team that does not defend well. So I like Utah to perform in this one. Obviously, Dostal's been great, but I like the Utah side of things a little bit better. As I just don't love the power play matchup for the Ducks either. Like I think this is a bit of a tricky one for the Ducks, but I'll get there a little bit. I'm mostly interested in this Utah side of things. And as you mentioned, it's that top line. Really, really good. But I think Carcone moving up there, man, 13,500 for that second line, super interesting. But yeah, Barrett Hayton's a tough click usually. So, Carcone and Gunther maybe miniing them up a little bit. The third line, we know that they can dominate, and getting Paterka gives them a little bit of firepower as well. So yeah, I think this Utah top 9 is great. And I want to click on this game a lot because I feel like it's a pretty decent environment, but I kind of find myself more in line with the field. But I do think it's a pretty good spot to get leverage on. It does feel like it's got some potential high scoring nature to it. So I think it's a tough one. Don't you agree? It feels like a weird one, and where I normally feel like I got a pretty good gauge, but I just don't know where the Ducks are right now, because they were so good and now they've been so bad.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, defensively, I think that's been the biggest, issue we've been seeing with the Ducks as of late. I mean, offensively, they're still chugging along fine. They're generating good quality. They're still scoring at a good clip. So, I mean, I feel like this is kind of a wide open game that really could go either way here. And I know that might seem like a little bit of a cop out, but there isn't one spot that particularly jumps out to me in this game as being better than the rest. Obviously I like both of the top lines here, a fair amount. And, the depth pieces on Utah in terms of that second and third line feel better than the depth spots on Anaheim. So I guess maybe from that sense, if you, gun to my head overall, which side do you like better? It's probably that Utah side, just because it feels like they got a little bit more depth right now up and down that lineup. But then in the same breath, it's so concentrated for Anaheim. It's the top line and Cutter Gauthier. So I think it's pretty easy to get there in terms of ownership here tonight. There really isn't a whole lot coming in. And again, Anaheim 1, Anaheim 2, and the whole Utah top 6, they all grade out within the top 16 lines to target on the slate tonight. So, usually for me, around that top 15 mark is kind of my cutoff for lines to target, and they all fall within the category tonight. So I think for me, that's a reason why I'm going to be getting over the field on ownership here in this game.
Yeah, and as good as Dostal's been this year, 3.4 goals against per game in his last 5. So has been a little bit more gettable. Let's get to some defensemen and some goalies before we get you on your way. Pretty simple for me tonight. Love Shane Gostisbehere. Love Brandt Clark. That's it. That's all she wrote. No, honestly, there's some
700. That's a great one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If Carlson's out, Chychrun at 5,700 is an absolute nuke play. 100% agree there. I find it so hard to ignore Gostisbehere and Clark. They're going to be I'm going to be very heavy on them tonight. I think there's obviously some good value. Like you got to like the Florida defenseman a little bit, right? Like Forsling just 3,200, Jones just 4,100. I mean, just too cheap for this matchup. Even Wallman's prices come down quite a bit. Evan Bouchard, like if the Oilers are in as good of a spot as we think they are, like he's $6,300, and like eventually he's gonna get it going, right?
Yeah, eventually. I mean, as the Oilers start to get it going, he'll be one who certainly gets dragged along with it.
Dante Fabro has kind of moved up and down the lineup here for the Blue Jackets, but in terms of doing shit per 60, he's about as good as they get on tonight's slate. Best floor per dollar on the slate: Ian Cole, Matthias Samuelsson, Matt Roy, Joel Edmondson, who's going to play additional minutes tonight with the injury to Drew Doughty, and Rasmus Sandin kind of round out your top 5 in terms of cheap doing shit defensemen tonight. Anybody else that stands out to you?
Not in a huge way. I've mentioned him before, Matthias Samuelsson. I think he's a solid play. He's up there on that top pairing. Should see a good amount of minutes tonight going up against the Edmonton Oilers. Joel Edmondson inexplicably has 6 points in his last 10 games played. I don't think that's necessarily sticky, but still solid floor with a little bit of shot, a little bit of block equity there. In terms of defensemen who do a lot of shit, Darnell Nurse and Matthias Ekholm lead the way. Lots of shots, lots of blocks from both of these guys. Dante Fabro at $2,600 I think is an okay play here tonight. Radko Gudas returning
back
to the lineup for the Ducks. He's back. He's definitely a shot block god. I think those are kind of the cheaper guys. Matt Roy at $3,100, fine play. And Rasmus Sandin, really like him at $2,700. I had him in my lineup on Saturday, in one of my lineups on Saturday. Like 26 DraftKings points in that game. It was absurd. And then he hit the block bonus yesterday. So, on Friday, then Saturday rather. So, I think there's some interesting defensemen. I think you can make an argument to be a little bit on the cheaper side for the Blue Liners tonight, even though there's a couple guys like Chikrin, Bouchard, Gostis Bear, a little more expensive that seem like they're in really solid spots. Goaltenders, man, I mean, I have no idea where to go tonight.
Oh, man. Yeah. I don't mind the Carolina goalie tonight, whoever it may be. I think they're in a pretty good spot. I honestly don't. I like Darcy Kemper. I've been playing a lot of Darcy Kemper lately. I think the Kings are really starting to find their way here, playing some really, really good hockey. And I think that price tag at 7,400 is good. I bet the Kings money line. So if that ends up coming to fruition, I think Darcy could be a pretty good play. Obviously, I think they've got the goaltending edge with Lindgren between the pipes on the other side of the ice. But yeah, it's a tricky one. I don't mind Bob tonight. Really high projection for him. I think that's okay. I think that's a game that the Panthers probably win pretty handily, even if they don't have an offensive explosion. So for me, probably Bob, Kochetkov, or Brandon Busey, then probably Darcy Kemper. I don't hate the idea of Swayman and Hurricane fades, but I just don't think it's necessary. And I don't think they win that game with how banged up they are with no McAvoy and company. So I think obviously with what you get from Vejmelka, a little too inconsistent. So I'm just going to go with Kemper as my cheap guy tonight.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't mind $7,200 Swayman. For one, he's seeing a ton of volume already this season, 27.5 saves per hour of ice time. In 8 games played against Carolina, he's got 5 wins, a 265 goals against average, and a 915 save percentage. If he can make 35 saves tonight and, keep him to 2 or 3 goals against, I think at $7,200, he's a fine play. I agree on Bob. I like getting up there at $8,400 just because it doesn't really feel like there's anybody else where you look at and you're like, yes, that's a really good play. Like 12% ownership for Charlie Lindgren feels really gross. Even though for whatever reason in his 2 games played against the Kings, he's got to win a 2.0 goals against average and a 939 save percentage. That's
when he was a good goalie though.
Oh, that's true. Kemper, I like him. I think whoever starts for the Hurricanes is fine as well, like you said. Maybe a little bit of Dostal, maybe a bit of Skinner, maybe a bit of Vejmelka.
Just a little bit of everybody. Sprinkle them all in.
I kind of feel like that's the thing. Like, I mean, I'm 20 maxing tonight, so I'm probably going to try and spread out my ownership on goaltenders quite a bit here. Because, again, there's just nobody besides Bob that really jumps out as like I want to play that guy, and I feel good about it too.
And even Bob, I mean, projected to face and he's projected to face the least volume of the night. So yeah, if he gives up 2 or 3, you're in trouble. But yeah, Swayman, I agree. The logic behind the Swayman plays is fine, and I think that's why he's drawing the third highest ownership of the night. Let's get to tonight's hat trick pick challenge. If you want to participate in tonight's hat trick pick challenge, all you got to do is drop your hat trick pick in the comment section of the video on YouTube. If your player scores a hat trick, we'll get you a $25 gift card to Nation Gear. You can pick up some DFO swag. If you just pick somebody, literally anybody, and then somebody else scores a hat trick that nobody picked, we'll just raffle it off, which has happened like 11 times this year. So, yeah, just get in. You could literally pick Andrew Peak and still win $25 tomorrow if somebody else scores a hat trick. So, Zach, who do you want tonight for the Hattie?
Let's go Zach Hyman.
Okay, Zach Hyman. I like it a lot. I was kind of all in on Carolina. I have been all day, but I'm going to go Cole Caulfield tonight. I think it's I kind of feel like the Montreal one's in a pretty good spot this evening. So, yeah. Comment your hat trick picks. Also, before we go, shout out to our friends at rotogrinders.com for providing projected ownership for today's show. If you want to get $20 off your first month of RotoGrinders Premium, link is in the description of the video. Also, in the description is a link to 20% off your first month of Action Network Premium if you want to up your betting game. And then, as always, we've got the link to the DFO DFS Discord in there. Come on and join the fun. In the Discord, we chat DFS all day long. It's where you can access the charts. And it's where we'll send lineup information. You can just chit chat. If you don't know if you should play this guy or that guy, people are in there to answer and help you out. Discord was just on an absolute heater last week as well. So I don't know, maybe just come in and catch some of the juju. Perfect timing. Beebs pops in to let us know Kemper is confirmed in Washington. If that's not a sign as we sign off, I don't know what is. Darcy for all the money tonight. I'm Brock Seguin. As always, joined by Zach Laing. We'll see you guys back here for a 8-game slate tomorrow. Till then, cheers.
Cheers.